Hi, everyone. I have an update to the video that I created yesterday regarding the anonymous solution ending email that I received. I sent that video to the person who emailed me, and I got a response back, and I want to show you that response, and I want to discuss a couple of things in such a way that that person can then watch this video and hopefully help provide us more information. Okay, before I move on, I want to make a comment to Granite Granny and also a couple of other people that have mentioned things to me in the past. Basically, here's the deal. I, like all the searchers, had a choice in the beginning. Do we believe the chase is real or not? If we trusted Forrest, we tried to solve the poem. Otherwise, we just move on thinking it was all a hoax. Either way is fine. We each made that personal decision. So obviously, I chose to believe that it was not a hoax, which is the reason why I went and tried to solve the poem. So we fast forward to 2020, and it's announced that the chest is found. Then 10 days later, pictures are provided, but the finder is still anonymous. So in August, Forrest Fenn submits an affidavit to the court saying that the treasure was in Wyoming, still where he hid it back in 2010. And yeah, he actually mentions the year he hid it, 2010, in Wyoming. Then in September that same year, Forrest Fenn dies. All of a sudden, the finder reveals himself. Do I think that this is suspicious? Well, yeah, I mean, it seems so, but given the light of the ambulance chasers who filed lawsuits claiming that the chest was in the wrong state, maybe it is true that Jack came out due to fear of being exposed. You know, I don't know, but yeah, it might be a controversy or maybe not. To date, not a single person has proven that it is a controversy and that some shenanigans are going on. And frankly, since I took Forrest Fenn's word in the beginning, I'm going to take his word for it again and just assume that it was solved and the chest was found. We've seen the pictures. It seems foolish to me to turn on the Forrest Fenn family and claim that everything is a hoax just because we were not the one that found it, right? But having said all of that, I do believe that Jack is the finder. What I don't believe is that he solved the poem 100% on his own. I believe he used someone else's solution as a starting point, and then he finished it before they did. Is that true? I don't know. Nobody knows. But the point is, I would rather focus on trying to provide a solution to the poem instead of chasing drama, looking for clicks and documentary funding. I want to have fun. I don't give a shit about Jack's relatives, where Jack went, who he knew, or in any way do I want to stalk the Fenn family or Jack's family just because I didn't find the chest. Everyone's trying to play detective and backdoor the chase. I feel they do that because they're simply not capable of providing a compelling solution in the first place and in the correct state. It was in Wyoming. Sorry if you think otherwise, then I can't say that you're wrong or right, but you are not taking Forrest Fenn's word that it was in Wyoming. So at that point, you have distrust in him. You think that there's a hoax going on. That's fine. That might be what other people are into. I'm not into that. To me, that's like watching Jerry Springer. People love the drama, but I'm not one of those who attempt to make a living at the expense of other searchers. I prefer to associate myself with thinkers. I want people who want to solve the poem. And yeah, the chase is over. There's no more chest to find, so perhaps it's a waste of time. But that is my personal choice. Again, I prefer challenge over bullshit drama. My choice. Okay. So now back on topic. The person who sent me that solve watched my last video, and this morning they sent me an email indicating that I made some mistakes. First, I'm going to read the email, then I will discuss it. I believe that whoever this person is can help us as a collaborative effort arrive at the best possible solution that we can get, considering finding the chest is now impossible. In other words, there's no way to prove it. Like all solves, nothing can be proven. So in the end, it's going to be up to the individual and what they believe. So what you want to do is try to provide the most compelling solution that you can, and you're going to assume the fact that you're going to believe Forrest Fenn, and you're not going to involve a controversy at that point. So in the video, I want to describe these details about my solve in such a way that the person who emailed me will completely understand where I'm going with this. And I'd love to see their on site 85 megabyte video that shows the destruction of the place that you had to stand to view the blaze. I'd love to see that boulder with a hole in it, especially since I now know that that person was talking about Five Springs and not Porcupine Falls. Yeah, that's right. The destruction that they seen and the hole in the boulder was not where I thought it was. It was at Five Springs above the falls there. And I've never been there. So I'm not saying that their solution at Porcupine Falls is wrong. I'm just trying to shine some light on what they may have missed. They indicated that they spent 20 days in Five Springs before abandoning it and moving on to Porcupine Falls. So perhaps they missed something. I don't know. I want them to pay attention to this video and hopefully respond to me in an email and do two things. One, I'd love to see that 85 meg video. Try to create a Dropbox account, which is totally anonymous, or maybe a Google Drive or some way of uploading that, and then let me download it and I'll share that with the community and let them make their own decisions. But the point is, I believe a lot of people at this time would love to see the destruction that you've seen. Because to date, we haven't really seen anything other than the silly GPS solve and other bogus claims made in Yellowstone. And I want to see what this person was talking about because there's too many coincidences, in my opinion. Number one, they emailed Forrest Friend in 2018 and told him that there was destruction that caused the issue with the phone. That is the same thing that Jack did. And Jack abandoned his search initially in 2018, and then he went to other places. For example, he might have went to Yellowstone, and then ultimately he went back to his original place, and that's where he ended up finding it. Well, that's essentially what the same person did that contacted me in email. They contacted Forrest the same year that Jack did, told him about the destruction, except they ended up abandoning their solve, and I'll show you the email and you can see that. And that's when they went over to Porcupine Springs and settled on the location that I showed you in the video yesterday. But I want to make it clear, as you'll see, they told me that I was wrong. The destruction that they seen was at Five Springs, not Porcupine Falls. Okay, so here's the email that they sent me this morning. I'll read it to you, and hopefully I'm interpreting this correctly. But anyway, you read it. So this they wrote the top part of this email before they watched my video, and then they watched my video, and then they sent this to me. So that hole in the top of the rock was at Five Springs Falls Upper Campground. The title of that email was erased with my name. We spent close to 20 days, boots on the ground, in 2018 in the Five Springs area trying to make my idea work there first. The Porcupine Creek never ever stopping idea came after I exhausted all of the sun ideas before the 2019 search season. So it's very similar to what Jack did. They spent a lot of time someplace and then they abandoned it, okay, and then they moved to another area, which this person moved to Porcupine Falls. Then they say, I believe someone blasted. Feels like more than a natural crumble of a stone wall. The hidden place that we walked into. The large overhanged rock wall hid an area that was about 20 to 24 feet long and 10 feet wide, estimate, near the top edge of that canyon. After you walk to the dead end at the canyon edge, looking over a large boulder at the edge, and the boulder is still there, you were facing slightly above the fall's top, the overhang rock wall behind your left side of the view at the dead end. The other landmark I mentioned is if you look straight down over the edge at the right side of the boulder, I saw a small island poking out from the side of the canyon with a solo tree in the center of the land. Oddity. Now, my understanding is what he's talking about here. It basically, he went in to the area where Sam Smith thinks that the chest was. and he followed the creek all the way down to the upper falls, the one that's impossible for you to climb. The only way to get there is from the top down. So what I don't understand is that also where the person discovered the damage? And is that also where they concentrated their search on? Because Sam thinks it was up there in that area. I believe that it was down, and I'll show you specifically where I believe that it was. I don't believe that it was up there. So anyway, all the comments that that person made about hearing the thunder of the falls and everything, he was talking about standing inside that overhang walled in area that was 20 to 24 feet long and 10 feet wide near the top edge of the canyon. Okay. I would love to see the video and would love for them to clarify this. And now I'm even more excited because they're telling me that this is at Five Springs. And I still believe that's where the chest was. So anyway, unfortunately, maybe not, I don't know. Because remember, this person doesn't have the chest either, neither do I. So he could be right, I could be right, or both of us could be wrong. We don't know, right? So anyway, in 2019, after they discovered that, is when they moved over to Porcupine Falls. And what convinced him to do that is some Mysterious Writings website where Forrest had made a comment for one of the, I think this was in Jenny's book, where she had uh, searches or some puzzles to solve for rewards. And one of the comments in there that I think this is the one that Satya and somebody else on one of the forums solved. And the ending said, if you were in the right spot, something you probably haven't thought about should be obvious to you. So, considering the time that that occurred and when that came out, I guess that this person who emailed me was taking that as a personal hint to them that perhaps they missed something at Porcupine Falls. So they abandoned Five Springs because he says here, I can only think of two things that put me in the right spot. The coordinates are describing what one would see from the spot. In other words, he believes that Forrest Fenn in the poem is describing a view of what he would see when you're standing at the time that you reach the semicolon in the poem. He's describing the perspective of what you would see. Then he goes on to say, of course, note, I wrote the above and then decided to watch a YouTube video before I sent it. I realized I must not be accurately relaying my information. Bottom line, the concept is there. Let each read and interpret it their own way. I have nothing else to add and will not be commenting online. He's talking about commenting on my video because Hooley left a comment and I replied to her that I hope that the person who emailed me would leave some comments. So they're basically saying that they're not going to do that. But what I do hope is that they leave one more comment to me and then also somehow give me access to that 85 megabyte video so that I could show it. Now, I want to show a couple of other things here to jump back to my solve and back to videos that I did prior to this, but I'm doing so because the person that emailed me, I want you to pay attention here in case it might trigger something that you thought about during the 20 days that you were boots on the ground at Five Springs. All right, so if you guys remember a couple weeks ago, I did a video regarding information that I discovered from J. Ellis Ransom regarding how the immigration of North and South America occurred 12,000 years ago and why the Bighorn area was more relevant than anywhere near Yellowstone at the time. If you look back at this image from roughly 12,000 years ago, this, of course, is artwork. We don't have images from 12,000 years ago. But this scientists believe that as this whole area was all white, you see where this land is? There was no land. This is all white because the glaciers came all the way down to here, right? And what happened was that was the last ice age. The glaciers basically sucked up all the water, revealing extending the coastline of the United States and also removing the water across the Bering Strait. So people were able to migrate from Asia, Siberia, over across to where current day Alaska is. Okay. But when they got across there, this was all still ice, okay, 14,000 years ago. But when the glaciers started receding, it opened up a land pass. And as you can see, this is roughly where they believe the opening was. So when the Paleo Indians and the Aztecs came down, they basically followed mammoths and other large animals down along that area that opened up, and they slowly migrated down here. As you can see, the area that opened up was here's the bighorns were on this side, and then the basins were all through here. So that's how they ended up migrating down there. If you look at Yellowstone during that time, this whole area in here was all still glacier. It wasn't 2 miles thick anymore, but it was thick enough that people were not able to travel through this area. And obviously, if you're an ancient and you're an animal, you're not going to go up through the snow and into these mountains. You're going to try to go along the rivers that are in this basin. That is why they came down the Yellowstone River and the Bighorn Rivers here and tended to populate that area. So I just wanted to make that clear. That's where these ancient trails come in that I'm talking about. And that is when they believe that the Bighorn medicine wheel was created 12,000 years ago. Okay, now this is the spot that I want that person that emailed me to concentrate on because I'm going to go over a couple of things here and maybe it'll trigger something in your mind. I don't know. A lot of you have already seen this image. This is basically from my solve, but I added something new here. This red line goes directly north of the bench that I talked about with Francis Brown on it. Is right here. So directly north, exactly 360 degrees north. There's this pin here. This is the pin that person with the coordinates sent me. Okay, so this is that image that you already seen. This red line is the trail that leads down to the base of the falls. And then this is the trail that I believe that they took. And then they came around from the left. And then they stood here, faced this way, and took that picture that I'm talking about. But I thought that the destruction occurred over here. And apparently, it didn't occur over there. Where they're saying that it occurred is, I believe, right up around here. Because I believe that what they're saying is they came in exactly the way I thought that Sam Smith would come in. They're coming from the wheel, okay? They went down from the wheel, come around, go into the very first entrance, which is Forest Service Road 651, follow trail number 140, which is at the end of that trail of Forest Road 651. Right here is the end. This is trail 140. And I believe that they went down and followed the stream here, just like Forrest Fenn did with Donnie looking for Lewis and Clark. So I believe that the place they're talking about the destruction was somewhere up around here. This is the mouth of the canyon right here. And then the canyon goes down. And of course, it reaches the point where that large falls is, and you can't go beyond there anymore. So in my solve, I believe that you would come in this way, and you're coming in from the base of the falls, not from the top down. And this red line here is the trail that I talked about in that last video that I did about the ancient trail that came from this image here from J. Ellis Ransom book. Okay, this is that trail that's going up, and then it cuts across and it goes directly to the medicine wheel. Okay, and then this dotted line is where the spirits would go, and that's also the line that crosses the E cairn. That's what we used in our solve. And down here, this is the mouth of the canyon that Five Springs Creek enters. And you can see that it occurs right where this humid trail is, which is right here. Okay, that trail basically goes up. You can kind of see the remnants of it if you really go in far. Like if you look over here, you can kind of see where the trail was. And then, of course, down here and around and then out here. So this is that trail. This is the canyon mouth. And then this blue line, of course, is the Five Springs Creek that comes down here. The Five Springs Creek is formed by underground springs that are up in the Five Springs Basin. And if you look, this, of course, is the first, it's right below where the wheel is. So it kind of makes sense. And this, again, is where the bench is. Now, one thing I wanted to talk to you, and this isn't what that person was talking about in the email, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. This yellow line is the summer solstice sunrise, okay? So, in other words, we took it down this way, just like Forrest Fenn did in looking for Lewis and Clark. He used mountain man wisdom. He found out where the sun rises, and then he basically followed the nearest stream down. He didn't go to where the sun rose, and when he looked directly south, he seen the largest mountain that he had seen. So they went down this way. But one of the things that the scientists discovered, if you follow that yellow line over the here, okay, up on this mountain, which is Duncombe Mountain, there's a rock with a hole in it. And I believe that this is similar to what that person's talking about. Let me show you. So there it is. There's the scientist on the other side of that hole. And I believe that we're looking east here. But this hole, if you were to look to it, goes directly to the wheel. And the solstice sun would actually come up right where this guy's head is through this hole. That is what the scientists believe. That yellow line leads right to this hole. That hole, again, is over here. And just to give you relations to everything, here's the Porcupine Creek. Here's the Porcupine campsite. Okay. Here's the trail that leads to the Porcupine Falls and where that person found it. So that hole is kind of in the beginning here. Okay. That hole is not described anywhere in any of this documentation. All of the documentation at this wheel primarily describes everything that we see over here. It doesn't get into anything over here. And by the way, now that I'm in here, let me show you guys remember the arrows that I was talking about that the Indians left. Here's one that is almost 100 feet long. It's right here. It's underneath these red lines. So there's the line of stones that I'm talking about. I basically made that red arrow. This trail that leads over towards Porcupine Falls is an ancient trail, and that's the way that another way that the Indians would come up if they left the Crow Reservation. They can come up in that direction. This arrow is actually on a slope. The mountain slopes down here, and this would actually be on the south side of the mountain. So if you were coming in from this direction, you could see that arrow. Okay. That's one of the arrows that's there. And again, just to give you perspective of where that arrow is, it was over here. So if the natives were coming down this way and going through these ancient trails, they would come up that way, and that arrow pointed directly to the wheel. So basically, as you guys remember, and also the person who emailed me, I just want to go over this once again. All of this information was available on site. I'm sure that you're aware of most of it, but I just wanted to say that this is how we discovered where warm water's hauled from the center through the Decarn, which is Falmouth. Okay. And then this line opposite the social sunrise is where we found heavy loads of water high. And of course, all these vectors is from the Edie's diagram, which is available on site at the wheel. So nothing was left up to our imagination. Everything that we based it on was based on you actually using the wheel. I want to remind you that that's the whole point. He says, try the wheel. I don't believe that when you uncover try to wheel, he's doing so just to get you in the general location. I believe he's telling you to put the wheel to use because he's going to indicate, and everything that he's then talking about or it becomes relative to the wheel, and he's using that information to describe where we need to go. And incidentally, this is what Fomalhaut would look like if you were looking towards D. Now, as you can see, Aquarius is up here, and this is the opening to Aquarius's urn. So Aquarius is spilling water out of his urn. Here's Fomalhaut. This is the southern fish, and Fomalhaut is at the edge of his mouth. So the mythology or the lore is that Aquarius is spilling the water and Fomalhaut is swallowing it all up. Okay, and then here we have the Milky Way. So this whole area of the sky is basically themed around water. And this is what you would see if you were standing at O and looking towards um, Five Springs Basin. So it would almost be like Aquarius is spilling water into Fomalhaut, which is going directly down into Five Springs Basin, which is where I believe warm waters halt. So we're taking it from the sky, okay, from these constellations and stars. And of course, on the left and the other currents represent Aldebaran, which is Taurus, the bull's eye. And then you have Orion the hunter pulling his bow back. And then you got the dog, hence no paddle up your creek. And the dog is chasing a hare across the celestial river into the sea, which is this area. So that is right next to the sea current. So he's sending you to the D current where warm waters halt. Okay. And then, of course, when you read the rest of the poem, you're walking clockwise around the wheel, and he's saying the END, the end. The END is ever drawing nigh. And when you get to the E, instead of looking at the sun, you're looking quickly down. Okay. And that's going to be where our red line is. So this old image again. This red line is looking down from the wheel. It's coming from the E. This line is coming from the D cairn. Okay, this is just the fence that's up there. And here's the bench at the Five Springs overlook. But this is what it would look like if you were in the sky and you were looking in that direction on summer solstice and you watch the sunrise. It would come up right here and it would go in this direction. So that is the initial blaze, in our opinion, the sun. So anywhere you see this red line, I'm representing a line from the center of the wheel through the ecern out in this direction. Okay, and that's leading you to what I believe is the physical blaze that's on the ground. So just for reference, and in case anybody wants to read it, I just want to leave once again Five Springs Crossroads of Culture. This is where this sign is right up at the bench where Francis Brown is, and when you're overlooking the Bighorn Basin over here. They're describing the trails, the ancient trails that come up. Okay, those are the ancient trails that they're discussing in here. That is the way that the people would enter the wheel, and that's also the trails that come up through the Five Springs area. And then just for completeness again, in case you want to go ahead and check this out, there's Francis Brown, there's Charles Brady, and there's Hammond Wise. If you've been wise and found the blaze, right? These are the fathers of the coalition who protected this wheel, which was the last stand for the 81 Indian tribes. So this is representing the home of Brown, essentially, which is Medicine Mountain. Now, of course, here is that red line that's coming down, and this is from our old saw, and it ends at Rainbow Canyon. This is actually marked on the map as Rainbow Canyon Overlook, and you can follow the road across here, ford the river, come across, and you can look down into Rainbow Canyon. So Forrest says, the poem leads to the end of his rainbow and the treasure. Well, the sun is pointing through everything that he describes there. And again, this pink square is row 4, block 23. And it happens to be right where Medicine Mountain is, the home of Brown. And then here's the road that would lead down. And here's that 651 road I talked about. Here's Trail 140. This green X is where Sam Smith thinks it is, and I believe the chest was right over here, right where this yellow thumbtack is. I believe that you put in down here on this road, which is now known as Five Springs Campground Road, because there's really no other reason to go up that road. That road used to be the only way to get to the wheel, but now everybody that goes to the wheel goes this way. They don't go. And matter of fact, you can't take cars past this area, and you can't take cars past this area going up this side. This from here to here is a hiking or a bike trail. There's no vehicles allowed up there. So I'm not going to go over that solve again. But one of the things that I wanted to tell the person that emailed me is I don't know, because I didn't talk with you, what made this solve so compelling to you. But what makes it so compelling to me is that we're looking, this is north again and this is south. Everything is related to the wheel. Here's coming off the decairn right into where warm water's halt. Okay. The sun is setting right across the mouth of the canyon. So everything is themed Five Springs. Forrest didn't have to say the creek and name the canyon and name where Warm Waters Halt is all related. Everything is Five Springs. Where does Warm Waters Halt? Five Springs Basin, right around this rim. Okay, so the Warm Waters Halt in Springs Basin. What begins in Five Springs Basin? Well, Five Springs Creek, which is this blue line, begins in Five Springs Basin. Okay, where's the canyon? Well, it's Five Springs Canyon. Okay, so where does the creek continue when it goes into the canyon? Well, it goes over Five Springs Falls. Then it cuts through Five Springs Upper Campground. Then it goes through Five Springs Lower Campground. Then it crosses over the road that leads up here. And then it goes into two reservoirs. And then it finally goes into the Bighorn. So everything is Five Springs. He doesn't need to repeat it. And this purple line here that I have was the area of protection. That is roughly how much area is protected by the agreement that the wheel coalition had with the United States government. So this area, in my opinion, is all an area of peace, because it's even documented here that the Indians would never fight when they're in this area. So I just want that person to look at this really close. And is there anything that they may have missed? Because my videos in 2018, of course, didn't discuss this kind of depth like this. So maybe you overlook something. I don't know. I don't know where you searched up here and what your solve is. Okay, but that's our solve. That's what we look for up here. Now, again, Sam Smith has a screen X. I'll show you where I believe it was. Basically, like I said, you would come up this road, okay, right where the sun is intersecting that. You would put in here, you'd come up, you'd follow that road to the campground. And I'm not going to explain how I got there because I explained how the poem was doing that already. Now, when you arrive here and you park at this, incidentally, when you're out this far, those two circles almost look like an infinity symbol. In any case, when you come in to the Five Springs Campground and then go up the dirt road to this area and park, this is where the trailhead is. The trail from here to somewhere in here is roughly a quarter of a mile. And you only gain 100 feet in elevation. This trail is completely safe. Children take this trail. Forrest Fenn easily could have taken this trail. And let me show you a couple things about that trail just for completeness. When you're at that campground, here's the signs that you're going to see. All right. So you guys, maybe you see something here. I'll try to zoom in. I don't really have a high resolution of this sign, but that's about as close as I can get into this. If you guys want to take a look at any of this, if any of you have been in the campground, you see, by the way, these are the warning symbols all over the place there for falling rocks, the heavy loads. All right. That's one of the signs. This is the next sign that you're going to see when you're over there. Again, here's that caution, falling rocks. This is right at the trailhead. We're looking at the trailhead that goes back all the way to the falls. All right. So this sign is basically heavy loads of water high. Five Springs Falls Trail. There's water high, not maintained beyond this point. Right. Travel at your own risk. There's no place for it to meet. Caution, falling rocks. There's your heavy loads. Here's a bigger sign that's there that explains more about the trail. You can go ahead and read it. Here's a topographic map of that trail so you can see the elevations. The trail comes in here, goes up, and then it curves down, and then it stays. Now the creek comes this way. That trail stays on the other side of the creek. What I believe is that when you're over here, you would ford the creek and you would go on the other side of the creek. And the chest was in this area. That's my belief. Now, this is where I am when I reach the semicolon in the poem. It's wintertime, of course, but this is that trail. We're about halfway along that trail. So to get to the falls, you would have to go behind this bench, go down through the trees, and go back around. Okay. But note that bench. Okay. This is an overview area, and you could sit at that bench and you could look at the horizon and see almost all the way across the Bighorn Basin. So when he says tarry scant with marble gaze, a tarry scant is a short stay. And this happens to be where you would sit and gaze, or maybe eat a pimento sandwich. The sun comes down and it intersects the creek over here. So this is where, in my opinion, you would break off from the trail and instead you would go down here and ford the creek. So this is looking in the opposite direction. There's that bench. I believe that the chest was over this way. In other words, it's time to leave the trail now. When you get down there, because of what we uncovered in the poem, where it tells you the chest is at the eye, I believe that the physical blaze would be this, which is the medicine man's eye. It stands for wise and watchful. So if you've been wise and found the blaze, the piece is a broken arrow. It's not what Candy said. She's completely wrong. An arrow stands for protection. Crossed arrow stands for friendship. These are you can find them all over the place. There are some discrepancies. Okay, a broken arrow is a sign of peace, not a down arrow. In any case, because I considered these arrows at one point, and I don't believe the blaze is an arrow, although it could be. Certainly, it was on the image that I showed because I would consider any of this stuff. I would, when I'm boots on the ground, I'm not just going to be focused on one symbol. In fact, it could even be a symbol of a sun, which is what we followed to get down here. But since I found the word I in the poem next to chest by taking the chest and going in the word peace and spelling it vertically, you take the C in peace and you spell out HEST using the fifth stanza. And it reveals the word I there, which is right under marble gaze and also under the blaze. So he's telling you, if you've been wise and found the blaze, and then he's telling you to marble gaze, and then directly below that is that I. Is that a coincidence that you would gaze with your eye? Is that a coincidence, or we're talking about the medicine wheel, which is when you're done at the medicine wheel, you would go and see a medicine man. Okay. He's the wise one, he's the watchful one, he's the one that's going to tell you all about your vision quest. So everything all fit within the wheel theme. And I want that person to email me to think about that because I would like to understand how they ended up getting to Porcupine and why did they abandon it. And I would certainly love to see that video. And speaking of videos, I'm going to go and show you another video that I've showed you in the past. Think about, beneath the canopy of stars. The wheel represents the stars. So we are right in the spot where we're beneath the canopy that you will be talking about, right? I didn't just, pick a random spot in the middle of Yellowstone. And you want to talk about a lush green forest. and then listening to the thunder of the creek going through here. I mean, this video is just amazing. I mean, I could definitely see Ben putting the treasure chest down here. Now look at the rocks though on the other side, right? I mean, just look at that water. We're under a canopy of trees in a lush green forest there. They're walking away from the waterfall, heading downstream. And then boom, watch here on the left, there's the bench. So that's basically it. Like I said, that bench is roughly right here. And then here's the so I think that you leave the trail down here. As soon as you go around the bench, come down, ford the river, and right along this canyon wall, I believe is where the chest was. I'm not. I at first I thought it was up in the area above. There's a small falls right here, and you can climb above that. And you can get in this area, and then this is the large fall over here. Obviously, you can't go up beyond this point here. You're stuck here. You can't get out. But you got to get off this trail. And when he says cold, you're cold because you need to ford this river or creek. Sorry. So I want to know, did them people actually search on the south side of this creek, or did they only go above? Let me align this north again. Or did they only go above the falls? And how far down did they go? I'd like to know where they searched, because maybe they shouldn't have overlooked it. I mean, they found the damaged site, and giving light of what Jack said, and the fact that they all contacted for us at the same time, maybe this is where it was, and they didn't go down there. Maybe they should have stuck with it. I don't know how they ended up getting here, because, like I said, they didn't really give me their entire solve. So anyway, that's it, and I'll keep you guys up to date if I receive any more information. But I really, really hope that they send me that video. I'd love to see that video, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, enjoy your week. Don't work too hard. Peace.